Welcome back to Indie Cult Horror, and this time around we are going to look at my interview from 2003 at the Horrorfind Weekend convention with Kyra Schon. Now, Kyra Schon, if you don't remember the name, because she does not have a huge career of horror films or movies in general to go by, Kyra is the little girl in Night of the Living Dead. She's Karen Cooper. What's really cool about Kyra's perspective on Night of the Living Dead versus everybody else that we've talked to so far about that film is that she comes at it from a completely different situation. She's a kid on the set of what's going to become one of the most famous horror movies ever made. The thing about it is she's not some random kid. So she is the daughter of Carl Hardman, and he, as Mr. Cooper in the film, as one of the producers of the film, a major part of Image 10, he invites her to be part of it and says, how would you like to do this? And here she is with this great opportunity as a kid to say, that sounds like fun. But she gets to be that kid on the set watching history being made. But the other cool thing about Kyra in this perspective angle is that she was also growing up a monster kid. She was very much a fan of watching Chiller Theater and seeing Bill Cardille introduce movies from the 40s and 50s. She'd seen Universal Monsters. She's seen the 50s kind of giant monster horror sci-fi movies. She was very much a kid growing up in that, with that background, and so she knew what she was kind of getting in for in that way, which is very cool. It's also very interesting to look at Kyra now, or I should say in 2003, and her perspective on how that puts her in a place for fans. So we talk a little bit about what does it mean to her to have people stand online to pay for her autograph, and what is that experience like from someone who played one role as a kid in one of the most famous horror movies ever made. So that's a lot of fun too. So she is a fan who became someone who has fans, which is always kind of an interesting perspective. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Kyra Schon.
Okay.
I'm Kyra Schon, and I played Karen Cooper in the original Night of the Living Dead.
Okay. How old were you when you were in the film?
I was 9 years old, almost 10.
Okay. And how did you really get the part?
My father was one of the co-producers, and he also played Harry Cooper in the movie. He played my father. And the part had actually been written for a boy. He was supposed to be called Timmy. But everyone was using friends and family for the film, and they didn't know any boys that age. So there I was, and I got drafted. So Timmy became Karen. That was it.
Did you have to actually audition, or was that was it?
I don't remember auditioning. I think it was just, there she is, might as well use her.
So with Carl Hardman being your dad, were you kind of a little pushed into it, or did you want to do it?
I wanted to do it because I had grown up watching horror movies. They were absolutely my favorite movies to watch. So when I found out that I was going to be in this thing, I was thrilled. I was a little nervous though, because I was afraid to make a mistake. And I thought, oh my God, because he made a real big point of saying it's expensive and film is expensive and time is money, and, that kind of thing. I mean, not necessarily in those terms, but I definitely got that you really couldn't screw up too much. So thank God I didn't have anything big enough to do that I could screw up.
Were you kind of given basic directions by George, or were you...
By my dad,
okay.
Actually, yeah.
So he kind of guided you through the process?
Yeah.
So you were already a fan of horror films. What kind of films did you like? Which ones?
My favorites growing up were really cheesy. The Wasp Woman, The Crawling Eye. I remember Little Shop of Horrors was one of my favorites, which is not necessarily that cheesy, but those were the kinds I'd watch them on Chiller Theater in Pittsburgh.
Are you still a fan of horror films?
Oh, yeah.
So you going to these cons and getting to meet people?
Yeah, well, I'm a fan too. That's what's fun about these cons for me. I'm not just at a table signing. I like walking around and seeing who's here and seeing all the stuff that they sell.
So your webpage and the stuff that you design, the Ghoul Next Door and all that stuff, I mean, how did you start getting involved that way?
A guy that I started dating at that time was into it, and he said, you need a website. So he started it for me, and then he sort of taught me how to write HTML, and I learned how to do it, and now I'm doing it myself.
Oh, so you actually take care of the page?
Yeah, all of the stuff. I've become like a Photoshop junkie. Been doing it all myself.
That's cool. And as far as interacting with the fans at these things, how does that feel for you from this
It's really
side?
fun. It's really fun. And as I was telling you earlier, I think that I didn't really necessarily get it until this weekend. And I've been doing these conventions since, I guess, about '88. And I mean, I've met a lot of people from horror films at these things, and they're really nice people, but I've never really seen them as sort of gods to me until Alice Cooper showed up here this weekend, and you know, he really became a god to me when I was about 12 or 13, and I never dreamed that I'd have a chance to meet him. And when I did meet him yesterday, I was like, wow, this is like the biggest moment of my life. And now, I mean, when I have people tell me that meeting me feels that way to them, it happened last night. A guy actually was in tears talking to me, and I thought, well, I didn't get that emotional about Alice, but now I can understand it. And this guy was a lot younger than I am, so you know, maybe he couldn't be quite as together about expressing his feelings, but it was, I think I get it now.
You ever had an experience with a fan that was kind of uncomfortable or made you feel weird?
I've had a couple of experiences, and I'm not going to mention the state, but every time I go to this one particular state for a convention, I have a problem with a weird guy. And it's always a different weird guy, but I don't know, there's something about that state, I think, and I'm not going to tell you the state it is.
How about, I know on your webpage I saw there was pictures of some tattoos that people had done with you. How do you feel about that? Like seeing
It's great. I love seeing these tattoos, and there's some really, really good ones out there. And I have some friends, two guys that I know, they wanted to get tattoos of me, but he said now that they know me, they don't want to. I don't really know what that means. But I think, you know, they think, well, I'm not just Karen Cooper to them anymore. Now I'm Kyra. You know, because the tattoos aren't of me, they're of the character. So
that's an interesting part of fandom that not many people can say they get.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But as far as being like an icon in horror imagery and something that has become such a cult image, it's such a known picture. I mean, when people see that kind of almost half profile of you, I mean, that's just, everyone knows it's Night of the Living Dead.
I know.
And how does that, I mean, that's such an important role.
It is, and I love seeing it on people. It's great. Well, I like tattoos a lot, and so it's nice that people express their sort of fan thing through that. And I like seeing it on bands, shirts. There's a bunch of different, you know, bands that have used that image on their shirts. But I feel differently about seeing it on lunchboxes and posters and magnets and keychains and t-shirts, and, you know, when it's coming from a big corporation, because I know that they're spitting them out, they're making all this money, and it's not about the same thing as like the Independence or Half-Life or somebody using my image.
Actually, kind of getting back to the making of the film itself, as far as the makeup, how hard was that to deal with it?
Well, I didn't really have a lot of makeup. I was a really ugly child. But no, I didn't have a lot. It was just light makeup and dark circles. I didn't have any wounds or anything. So it was pretty easy for me. But it was really fun watching them applying the wounds to other people, and I learned how to do it too. And you know, I ended up they used mortician's wax to do it, and I ended up with a couple of tins of it. And I'd go home and practice on myself and on my friends, and that was fun.
So you were never scared?
So I always had great wounds at Halloween after them.
But you were never scared on set?
No, not for a minute.
How did it feel to get to kill your dad on camera? Was that kind
Actually,
of
I
fun?
killed my mother, but she's not my real mother.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's right. Your dad was off
Yeah.
camera.
I only ate his arm. Well, she wasn't even in the room when I did that scene. I was stabbing into pillows in the corner. So, you know, let's just keep going. Can I stop now? You know how many times. And of course, the real geek fans, you stabbed her 14 times. So.
So I guess that part wasn't that much fun then.
It was fun, yeah. But and then they were throwing chocolate syrup at the wall too, because that's what they used for blood. And after I ate his arm, I had chocolate syrup all over my face. You know, what's not to love about that?
Do you watch the movie now?
Yeah, I watch it. Well, I don't. I don't watch it every time it's on TV because it's always on TV. And they had it on here outside Friday night. I like the film. I really love the film, and I'm a fan of a lot of Romero's films. But to me, it's gotten more depressing over the years, and I think that's because I've seen different things in it. When I was a kid, it was just about zombies. Now it's not about zombies for me at all. It's about people and how they interact and how they can't even get along long enough to save their own lives overnight. So that depresses me. It's really bleak, really hopeless, and I think it sort of speaks to the whole human condition.
Now, being a fan of movies, growing up, being involved at that young of an age on a film set, have you tried to kind of get back into it, or?
No.
Yeah?
No. Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh. If I had been in New York or LA or someplace, it might have been a different story. I don't know. But I never felt a drive to get into it. And at that time, there really weren't many opportunities in Pittsburgh for that kind of thing. And, so I went a different route.
As far as like the sequels and the other movies that Romero has done in the area.
No, we never even talked about it. I mean, after Night of the Living Dead, I don't think I saw him again until I was maybe 25 or something.
Did you see the films? Did you see Dawn and Day?
I didn't see them in theaters. I saw them years and years later when they came out on video. And I like them a lot. I know a lot of the really hardcore Romero fans, most of them seem to like Dawn of the Dead better than Day of the Dead. I like Day of the Dead better. And I think it's probably because of Joe Pilato's performance. He was great in that movie. Love him.
What about the remake they did?
I didn't mind the remake. I didn't see it really as a remake. I saw it as sort of just a retelling. It's different than the original. It has a different tone, and I really see it as almost a separate movie.
I was going to ask how it affected your life, but I guess here is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you away from your table too long, so.
I'll have another cigarette.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks again for tuning into Indie Cult Horror. I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Kyra Schon from 2003 at Horrorfind Weekend. And I will see you next time with another interview with someone else who is part of Indie Cult Horror history. See you next time.